Hello there, guys. Good day. Welcome to Lesson 3 on Language in the Whole Gamut of Communication. Today, we are going to determine culturally appropriate terms, expressions, and images. Also, adopt cultural, intercultural awareness, and sensitivity in communication of ideas. Before we dig into the varieties of English, let us first discuss how English has or had spread globally. So the global spread of English, guys, is concerned with the term diaspora, in which diaspora is derived from the Greek word diasporin, which means to scatter. So diaspora means the movement or migration of a group of people away from their ancestral homelands to a land that is not theirs. So they begin to settle in these lands, and that they form a community. This is applicable to the British, who scattered all over the world with their language as a major influence of the areas where they migrated to or where they settled on. The first diaspora, or the first dispersal, has something to do with English migration to the New World. This diaspora involves the movement of the native speakers of English from Britain, Ireland, and Scotland to countries like New Zealand, Caribbean, North America, Canada, South Africa, and Australia. The British dominated these lands, and the English language became the dominant languages in these various countries. The second dispersal is where English is transported to Africa and Asia. So the second diaspora involved the colonization of African and Asian countries by the British, and that brought about new varieties of English, which is called the second language varieties. So in West Africa, there was the emergence of slave trade in countries like Nigeria, Gambia, Ghana, Sierra Leone, and Cameroon. So in the East Africa, on the other hand, English was transported to countries like Kenya, Zambia, Uganda, Zimbabwe, Tanzania, and Malawi. So English then became the language of law, education, government, and all other sectors. There could be three main factors that led to the spread of English. Let's take a look at what are these factors. Before the development of English in those countries that I mentioned a while back, during the diaspora, there were factors that led to the spread of English, and they are: first, British colonialization or colonialism. In the 17th and 18th centuries, English language was spread through the imposition of the British culture on some countries in the outer circle. Later on, you'll see what are these outer circle that I'm talking about. And these countries called the British colonies or Commonwealth of Nations. So they belong to the British Empire. Then the second factor is industrial revolution. There was a total change in the economy of England in 1760 and later on in other countries as well. There was the replacement of hand tools with machines, and these led to the establishments of industry. So these large scale businesses and production machinery were technological advancements led by Britain. So many countries needed these access because it was very innovative and powerful to daily trade. And because of this, these countries needed advice on the usage of their innovations, the manuals, and the only language available then was that of English. And so this is now what led to English becoming an international language. And that is why the expanding circles of English speakers make use of English. This expanding circle speakers now learn the English language primarily for trade relations or for international affairs. Then the third, an important factor is English in terms of education. English being taught in schools and colleges since the 16th century has been passed down and developed for centuries. This has aided the spread of English language. According to Kashru, in 1985, the spread of new English started through the classroom. In most countries, the government accepted that English language is important, thereby making communications through spoken and written English possible. So many countries today learn English in institutions either as a whole or as a second language, or in some other countries as a foreign language. Now let's take a look at the varieties of English. As I mentioned, this perhaps this isn't a new thing to you, a new concept to you. So the popular three concentric circles of Asian Englishes was introduced to us by Kashru. Let's take a look at what are these. Okay, and what these circles are about. So the inner circle, guys, is the circle that consists of countries where English language has played a traditional and original role. Now, this circle also forms the traditional base of English language speakers. So countries belong to the inner circle are USA, UK, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand. So the next one is the outer circle, which is the second level of English speakers, that they are very large in population and have a great history of colonization by the British, where English is their official language, where imposed English then was imposed to them because of the colonialism, and that it becomes their second language. This is why they are called second language speakers of the language. So English language is not only for international reasons, but they use the language in their day-to-day activities. Countries like Singapore, Malaysia, Pakistan, and including Philippines belong to the outer circle. Aside from the fact that aside from colonization, there is also a different reason why English is used, and these countries belong to the expanding circle. So these countries are very large in population, but they do not speak English in their interactions. English is not their language, nor it is used generally within the country. This language also has no historical development as compared to the second language, and that they have not been colonized by some member countries in the inner circle, and so they do not have the varieties. They do not have the English varieties as a result of post-colonial activity. They learn English as a foreign language or a third or a fourth language, primarily due to the need for international affairs. As I mentioned a while back, they used English for trade, international trade. Okay, so these are the circles, and let's take a look at this. The countries that countries belonging to inner, outer, and expanding circles. So you have here inner circle. These are the ENL, or the English as a native language member countries. On the outer circle, these are the countries belonging to the ESL, or English as a second language member countries, and expanding circle, which are the EFL, who which English is their third or fourth language. Okay, and that they primarily use English for international relations or affairs. Okay, according to Bautista and Gonzalez, the structural characteristics of these new varieties differ significantly. This is brought about by mother tongue, or what we call home language, of those who learn or acquire English. And even in terms of social features, Sky, differences can also be highlighted in that there is a continuum of acrolectal, mesolectal, and basilectal varieties of English within the same community. So the first one here is acrolect. This is a variety that comes closest to the standard or the formal language, while the basilect is the one that degreases thoroughly from the normal or the standard variety of English. And the one that comes in between is the mesolect, or the middle variety is is also what we call as midway. Okay, between acrolect and basilect. And added to that, Bautista and Gonzalez used the term idiolects or idiolect for these varieties resulting from certain types of education ascertained by social class, but are conveyed or transferred by the kind of instruction of the school systems, especially for those coming from higher income families and or better educated classes. As regards to structural variation, guys, Kashru and Nelson in 2006 claim that these varieties of English are influenced by local languages, and local languages in various areas of their grammars exhibit specific phonological, lexical, syntactic, and discoursal characteristics. For instance, okay, in terms of stress and rhythm, outer and expanding circle varieties observe syllabic time or syllable time stress or rhythm rather than stress time rhythm. For example, Nigerians say success success for success. So syllable means per syllable. Okay, stress means there's an emphasis of stress. Remember, stress makes emphasis. Okay, and Indians and Nigerians say recognize, then nice for recognize. Okay, so recognize, the one that has apostrophe, okay, what we call stress here. So they differ when it comes to stress and rhythm, syllable time or syllabical time, and a stress time rhythm. Okay, moreover, speakers from the outer and expanding circles do not make any changes in their pronunciation to make a distinction between nouns and verbs, in their pronunciation to make a distinction between a noun and verbs in pairs, which inner circle usually observe. For example, import and import. No, these are it these are words that are spelled similarly, but when stress is given, when stress changes, the meaning also changes. For example, when we say import, it is a noun. When you say import, it is a verb. But the outer and expanding circle usually do not make such kind of distinction. They do not utilize contrastive stress for focusing whether it is a noun or a verb. Okay, that came out from the study of bamboos, campers as cited in Cashew and Nelson in 2006. Another thing, guys, is with respect to sounds. Outer and expanding circles do not observe initial aspiration of voiceless plosives like p, t, and k, or p, t, and k, and these are often perceived by inner countries like B, D, and G, or B, D, and G. Some speakers of expanding circle varieties, as in the case of Japanese speakers, do not properly distinguish between R and L. You perhaps have observed this one. They may have, difficulty pronouncing R and L, or and L, right? Okay, when it comes to syntactic feature, according to Pope 1976, as cited in Cashew and Nelson 2006, in the case of syntactic features, question answering systems also differ between inner and outer circles. Okay. For the inner circle, they observe, members in the inner circle usually observe the positive negative system kind of questioning. Okay, native English speakers frequently answer a negative question with positive answer. For example, if the question is in positive, the answer confirming the assumption of the questionnaire is in the negative. If, however, the question is the negative, the answer confirming the assumption of the questionnaire is negative. negative as well. While the answer disconfirming the assumption of the questioner is in the positive. On the other hand, outer circle observes the agreement-disagreement system when questioning, which poses quite a difficulty to speakers who follow positive-negative system, particularly in interpreting the yes or no of the response, unless it is followed by clarification, for example, like, yes, I think you're right, or no, that's not so. So um, there could also be differences now when it comes to the syntactic features when in terms of question answering system. With respect to lexicon, guys, vocabulary words peculiar only to some English varieties in Southeast Asia can also be noted in this in the study of Packer, but cited in Kashu announced in 2006. For example, in Singapore English, there are particular terms peculiar in their area, like Missy for nurse, chopper rubber, Marina Kids for youngsters around Marina Square. The other hand, we also have this. We use lots of these words that are particular to our area, like when we use, oh, this is to be um Malaysian. I'm sorry. Malaysian English na siya, guys. Letter B is Malaysian English. Antilope for male hated by a girl. Popcorn for loquacious person or very chatty person. Debugs for those who come and attend school but do not live in residence halls. Then Philippine English. I'm sorry. There is some a typographical error here. B should be Malaysian and C should be Philippine English. So some terms peculiar to Philippine English are like deep when we refer to some so to an idea that is difficult to understand, for high blood for someone who is tense or upset, the blue out for um say entreating someone or for a snack or for a meal. Then you have Bromdi from the province, and Amboy for Filipino, perceived to be pro-American. So these are some of the terms, lexicon, that are peculiar to specific varieties like Singaporean English, Philippine English, and Malaysian English. Okay, now let's discuss register. Okay, when it comes to language variation, okay, there are terms that we have to take note of. Okay, so the term register was first introduced by the linguist Thomas Bertram Reid in 1956 and began to be largely used by other linguists who wanted to define register as a variation according to the user, affected by other variables like social background, geography, gender, age, among others. I would like to emphasize that the variation is affected by according to the situation, according to the user, affected by other variables. So this means that a person or a user of language register possesses a range of register to suit him or her at different situations, different scenarios, or different times with different types of audiences. So hence, register should be easily distinguishable from other language variation based on regional and age dialects, even if they would sometimes overlap with register itself. So register should also be distinguished from jargon or highly technical terms associated to a particular field. So this is the reason why some of us come off too bossy at times, or sometimes even rude to people we talk to, even without intending to actually offend them or intending to sound without intending to sound arrogant. Okay, so at times, no, there could be many situations that we tend to be sound off as we have in as what we have intentionally ought to be. Okay, So a variety of English of language defined according to its social situations. Example, register of specific of scientific, religious, a community, formal English, like according to Crystal 2008. This also refers to a kind of language whose forms are of definable situation regardless of the status of the participants, thus finds the register of legal language, liturgical language, and so on. Okay, that's according to Crystal in 1964. So it is noted, guys, as I've mentioned, that genre and register often overlap and are sometimes used interchangeably. According to Lee, 2001, genre is associated more with the organization of culture, while register or language register is associated with organization of situation. To this end, register is understood as context-specific variety of language to which the field, mode, tenor framework is important. Okay, what are the terms that we have to remember? The language register for the linguist. To give a concrete example, guys, let's take a look at this one. Okay, so the linguist would refer register as tenor or the participants in a discourse, or maybe describe in terms of the roles required of the communicators, including the cultural values shared by both, and then the discourse, the tone, okay, which refers to the change of the pitch, and the style, which which explains the linguistic variance with specific social meaning. Okay, so language register then refers to the formative language which one speaks. So a language variation based on the use and not on the user. So I would like to emphasize that again, that language register, guys, is a language variation based on the use, okay, and not on the user. So regardless who the user may be, when a situation requires you to be formal, then you have to use formal language register. Okay, although for the most part, no, the shift of register is oftentimes intuitive and as we are unconsciously shifting one register over the other, but it is important that we consider the context, no? The context of the communication and the type of audiences that we are communicating to. Okay, the type of communication that we engage into, and while considering a particular language or type of audience that we are communicating to as well. So language register possesses a range of register to suit us, no, at a different situations with different types of audience. Okay, so let's discuss the different types of register. Okay, the first one, guys, is formal. Okay, the language register often used when we are communicating academically. Okay, so this means that this formal register is appropriate for professional writing and letters to, for example, if you're writing to a boss or to your superior or to your professor or someone, we are meeting for the first time. Formal writing is also probably the most challenging type of writing, that since it requires conventions to follow. So this register also, guys, is useful if we have to write a letter that is both impersonal and unemotional to a specific person. For example, as a college student like you, this is the language register required of you when you need to write a letter to your professor, much more if you are communicating through a letter to the dean of the college or to the president of the school. No, Or if you're writing to the president, the college president in behalf of a school organization, this same register is also what is required when you have to write an application letter to your would-be employer soon. Since it's formal and there are certain conventions that you have to follow. Okay. So let's take a look at its letters, letters of complaint, job interviews, announcements, writing a professional email, etc. So informal and using the formal register, guys, the following are to be observed. First is do not use contractions. Okay, contracted words are not appropriate in a formal writing. Okay, especially if it is to be it has to be written. Although it is pretty much common when spoken. Okay, examples will not instead of want, have not instead of haven't. So contracted here, haven't is the contracted word of have not. However, contractions, guys, can be used if you are quoting someone's exact words in writing. Okay, contracted words are allowed in the event that you wish to quote a particular statement from a person or you left a particular statement to your write-up. That's totally fine since you cannot make paraphrase of it if it is really have to be quoted exactly as it is. Because there are cases na hindi natin i-paraphrase because if so, the meaning loses its impact. Okay, like the Filipino worth dying for. It is if you're going to paraphrase that, the impact of the statement might also be altered if you are going to paraphrase. So you wish to remain exactly as it is. Okay, for apostrophes, it is to be remembered, guys, that contraction is different from apostrophes. Although both use apostrophes, yung quit sa taas. Okay, for apostrophes, keep in mind that it does not pertain to contraction. Apostrophes are added to nouns to express ownership. For example, teacher's laptop. Okay, professor's professor's email. So the use of apostrophe in those examples are to express ownership and not to contract words like haven't for have not. Okay, another guideline is avoid using too much passive voice. Okay, passive voice sentences. Okay, for example, the terror attacks were reported by GMA Live. So in this case, the sentence here is the subject becomes a receiver while the the active voice, the subject is the doer of the action, which is advised as compared to passive. So let's take a look at this one. If you are going to transform the passive sentence to a active voice, it is more desirable. Like GMA reported the terror attacks. Like who reported GMA? But in this case, the emphasis is more of the terror attacks than who reported it. So although there are cases naman no, that we can use passive voice, but it is discouraged to use it often no in a formal writing. Okay, so use it sparingly. Okay, do not use it excessively in writing. Then we missed the second one. Spell out numbers less than 100, like 25, 6. Spell out entirely. Not only the number like 22, 0, but the entire letter, the entire word. Fourth, guys, is avoid using slang, idioms, exaggerations, and cliches. So in formal writing, it is better to use it is it has to be these have to be refrain avoid using from. Okay, these expressions are acceptable in informal writing and spoken English, but never in a formal write-up. So examples like awesome, check it out, or in a nutshell, or cliche refers to a phrase that is often overused, like too much of a good thing, last but not the least, or moment of truth. Okay, these are some of the cliches that may not be advisable to use in a formal writing. Also, guys, avoid abbreviations. and acronyms. So if you have to use an acronym, write it out the first time. Like if it is the first time that you mention San Pedro College and you write up in the first paragraph, then spell it out first, and then you may use the acronym in the succeeding parts. If you wish to use San Pedro again in the same paper, okay? But do not right away abbreviate acronyms like name of schools, okay, and some other acronyms. Okay, for abbreviations naman guys, write the complete word for the word the first time, then abbreviations are in order. For example, influenza for flu, tablespoon for TBSP, and Manila for MLA. Okay, and other also that you have to refrain from are informal messages used for text for messenger. Okay, for example, lol, lol, be right back, brb, omg, and many others that you cannot use in a formal um, register. Formal writing also, guys, requires good transitional devices or transitional words like nevertheless, consequently, first. So these are transitional words that help you signal what to do next with your write up. Okay, this would also help your readers know that you are already making transitions from one idea to another. Then seventh guideline, always write in sentences. Okay, for example, before the expiration date, you must consume the products before its expiration date. So although it was delayed quite well, you have to write the complete sentence for this one in the middle of an exhibition. So you gotta be writing the entire thing if it is to be written formally. Complete sentence must be observed. Like instead of just saying in the middle of an exhibition, you can say in the middle of an art exhibition, the artist himself opened the auction for his masterpieces. So you can do that. Next, guys, is write longer and more sophisticated sentence. This is not really a must, but as a college student yourselves, it is expected that you kind of write in a more sophisticated level, like what a college student should do, and not an elementary kind of writing. Okay, so you might want to also consider use write-ups that are usually written by well-educated individuals as expected from you in the higher level. Okay, but it does not apply to any all situations that you really have to write it longer when you can just express it simpler. So it's a case-to-case basis, but again, um formal write-ups are usually written by well-educated individuals. So you might want to consider reflecting on how sophisticated your write-up is as a college student or as academician. Okay. Next register, so you have formal, we have informal registers. So to young people, this register is what you often use or what we often use when we communicate with friends and family. So also when we communicate to someone we know very well, unlike the formal register, the informal register accepts slangs and cliches, so those that we avoid in the formal register. Okay. Facebook posts, blog, diaries. So it's not really a requirement that you have to post. You have to be very particular in expressing when you intend to communicate informally, unless you are very meticulous with the grammar, even if the situation does not require you to. So put your corrections in context, especially if you are doing it on Facebook posts or Twitter posts. Expect talaga that oftentimes it's informal. And then neutral register, guys. This neutral register is neither formal nor informal. Basically, it is the tone that is used when expressing facts that are devoid of emotion. Okay, some writings including books, okay, are written in neutral register. This explains why the past, why the books that you've used previously in the past are not specifically formal nor informal. But the fact remains that, like other writings, any other books, intention are to deliver facts, and it is only normal that it has to be devoid of emotions. Okay, other writings that use neutral register, guys, are reviews, articles, essays, technical writing, and many others. Okay, there are other types of register other than the three. The main common types are formal, informal, and neutral register. But other than that, there are specific types. Okay, these are static or frozen, which is a register written that that rarely or never change, like the language used in religions, laws, and customs, or a certain community. Okay, like national anthem, religious books, laws, prayers, lyrics of song, etc. So these are frozen register. You also have consultative or professional register, which register that you specifically use when conversing to usually transactional level of communication. Okay, that it allows you to get information bidirectionally. So that includes back and forth communication. So consultative or professional, like doctor's appointment, some meeting with the principal, or legal consultation. So usually transactional yung communication type niya. Then casual or group, so more like informal but specific on, speaking or communicating in a specific people of the same group. So it does not really follow any standard societal rules. So slangs, figurative languages may be in use when talking casually or in groups. So the type of communication level here is multidimensional. Examples: team celebrations, office parties, and many more. Intimate, this is the type of register that you use when you are communicating intimately with your family member or close friends or to your lover, although it is considered as the language of sexual harassment. So the communication level here is bidirectional, which means it also includes back and forth communication. So, okay, intimate conversation between lovers, letter, and many others. Okay, so let's take a look at English as a specific language, guys. Now, after a thorough discussion on language register and how linguists define it, how linguists define register, and the other terms like tenor, tone, or style that we've mentioned a while back, let us then zoom in on language itself, or language per se. And in this case, English is our target language. By first, we categorize the language based on accent. Okay, accent. The first one is American English, or the AME, abbreviated as EME. Perhaps you have seen this one. Then the Australian, or the AUE accent, and then the Black English and the British, or the British accent, or the BRE. Okay, so the first one, guys, the first English, as in terms of accent, okay, is American English, which is often abbreviated to AME, a variant of English language spoken mainly in the US. So about 2/3 of them about 2/3 of the world's native English speakers living in the Americas speak this variant. Okay, this was first introduced to North America by the British settlers in the 17th century during the colonization period. Then the next type of English is Australian English, or AUE with its abbreviation, a variant of English spoken largely in Australia. This variant began to diverge from British English shortly after Australia was settled in the late 18th century. So it bears resemblances to the New Zealand English and certain dialects of Southeast England. Then the third one, guys, is Black English. This refers to British and American English spoken by Black communities in the US and the United Kingdom. It also refers to as a variant of English spoken widely in the Caribbean and Africa. And then the British English, or the BRE, as its abbreviation, is a variant of English spoken mainly in the United Kingdom. This variant, together with American English, are taught in most English as a second language, and English is a foreign language or the EFL programs, usually either AME or BRE, which means American English or British English, because there might also variations specifically with the lexicon, guys. Okay, there are terms that may vary, like for AME or American English, we call it apartment, but for British English, they call it flat. So lexicon may also vary in terms of the English variety. Okay. Okay, question. Miss, is there a correct variety of English after discussing those variants of English? Not to mention world Englishes in the Southeast Asian. So Dr. Arzela Clark, a linguist specialist, declares on variations in the use of English and what this could mean for education policy and teachers of English, that you are what you speak and your place of origin is the most important identity factor. Her research, Dr. Ursula's research, took place in the West Midlands region of UK and examined variations of English used in creative spoken performances such as comedy, drama, and poetry. So other texts used in local newspapers, stories, and poems were also used in her investigation. And in her research, Dr. Clark surmised that English, over the years, been fragmented, dynamic, and mobile like never before, and that the so-called standard English has weakened. Okay, Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines standard English as the English with respect to spelling, grammar, pronunciation, and vocabulary is substantially uniform, though not devoid of regional differences, that is well established by the usage in the formal and informal speech and writing of the educated, and that is widely recognized as acceptable wherever English is spoken and understood. In addition to that, Clark mentioned that what is important is that we are able to recognize the many varieties of English, okay, including that of the standard, and pick up one variety that we are comfortable with and be understood while using it. So regardless whether it's standard or not, depende. If it has to be according to the standard because there are conventions to follow, then you have to follow it. After all, communicating is not about, what variety you use, but to be able to use a language comfortably and be understood while using it, especially for communicative purposes. Okay, so even though English is used around the world for the purpose of trade, travel, medicine, and so on, it is an interesting fact that majority of the world's population today is largely bilingual. No? If not multilingual, like in our case, even in nations where English is the mother tongue. So it is pretty much understandable. So it is ignorant for us to say that there is only a specific variety of English that we could use when communicating. Okay, I hope that you understand that, especially guys, that you are a student in purposive communication. So question, Miss, who then should teach English? Okay, traditionally, we consider the native speakers of English to be the best English teachers in the world. In fact, there is, there was a discrimination before that if you're coming from if you're a native speaker of English, that would make you a good English teacher, but that's not the case anymore. Okay, this view is shared even in the nations of Japan, guys, in Korea, that require their English teachers to come from America or any country whose first language is English. However, However, students show that linguistic variations are present in all languages and that all varieties have their own rules and systems. If we submitted this view which suggests that English comes in multiple varieties and that no variety is superior than the other, in the same way that no culture is superior than the other culture, then the question of who should teach English is already insignificant. On a more profound note, guys, successful communication is not a communication of who uses it, but rather a question of understanding and harmony. If you are able to engage successfully in your given context at point in time using your variety of English, Philippine English, Malaysian English, or whatever variety of English that you prefer, then you have already fulfilled the essence of communication. So that is what this is all about. Okay? Okay. But before let's end this discussion, guys, let's take a look at what is social linguistics. Okay, the discussion does not end with variety of English, ha. For a more solid knowledge of how encompassing communication and language are, we have to look at the social life of humans on a linguistic perspectives, no? And that is what the social linguistics is all about. The formal definition of social linguistic is a term used to describe all areas of study between language and society other than those which are purely social, scientific in their objectives, such as ethnomethodology. So to put this simply, guys, social linguistics is the study of relationship between language and society, and that it focuses on how language is used by the individual speaker and groups of speakers in its social context. Okay, so for a student of purposive communication like you, social linguistics is the study of how people use their language in their everyday lives, how identities are shown more vividly through the words you use, how through language you intentionally or unintentionally create, maintain, or disrupt relationship with others. So other issues that surround social linguistics are how word pronunciation, choice of words, pattern of words combined together affect the understanding or the misunderstanding between individuals and among culture. Therefore, we again can conclude that language is more than what meets the eye. No? It is like a mirror through which we can look at social behavior. Through language, we send vital social messages about who we are, where we are from, and who we identify ourselves with. With this in mind, guys, it is worrisome that we sometimes resort to judging, a person based on his language, regional dialect, or in some instances pa nga, no, even the choice of a single word. This is especially true in this generation, especially now, okay, where people feel the need to express themselves in different social media platforms that are aided by technology. Okay, so other than social linguistics, guys, we have to also know the idea, at least no, the idea of pragmatics and discourse analysis. So the two other areas of linguistics are pragmatics and discourse analysis. So pragmatics, guys, focuses on how speakers utilize language to convey information. Okay. The issues constantly mentioned on pragmatics revolve around how choice of words, sentence forms, intonation, rhythm, and pitch convey subtle features of messages. Okay, how language conveys who did what to whom, when, and how we use language to accomplish specific speech acts like requests, apologies, threats, among others, may bring us closer or alienate us from others. On the other hand, discourse analysis focuses on the text and its context. Now, this perspective looks at text and context as a basis of movement from the informal to formal or vice versa, or more simply, guys, to register being used by individuals in speaking community among themselves. Okay. So to put everything into perspective, language register, linguistics, social linguistics, and communication itself affect the concept of globalization, the development of factor in cross-cultural interaction in business, and that virtual interaction has become an indispensable ingredient to workplace dynamics. Okay, guys. So thank you so much for listening, everyone. I hope that I am making sense here with all those informations provided for you. So stay tuned for the next lesson or the next activity after this session. Thank you so much, guys, and bye bye for now.